you guys, welcome back to the channel. I thought that we would continue our 25 and 25 reading journey, if you will. I've been trying to read as much of the books from my 25 and 25 as I possibly can. And just to update you guys on where I'm at, here is my 25 and 25. So it looks a little bit more colorful than it had before, but we're still missing quite a few. You can tell all of the books that are pasted in are the books that I've read, or at minimum have attempted to read, because for example, I tried reading Good Omens and I ended up DNFing it. Today we're gonna pick our next book. So I have my handy dandy wheel here and I've already removed all of the books that we have read. So I currently have 15 more books out of 25 that I've not read. So let's pick which book we're going to read. We're going to spin. It landed on Bunny. I have been putting this book off for far too long. I've been putting every single one of these books off for far too long. I'm actually excited that it's spun Bunny because I think Bunny is kind of like a thrillery type book from what I understand. And I think that that will be kind of fun during this like fall or spooky season. I want to know how long it is. Let's see. I recently found out that Bunny is actually a series. So we'll see if we like the first one and that will determine whether or not we go on to the second one. But it's 305 pages, so it's not super long, which is great because I feel like I've been reading a lot of long books lately and I kind of want something a little bit shorter. Let's get Bunny. I think I'm gonna try to get it on my Kindle and then we'll start reading it and I will give you guys all of my thoughts. I'm gonna try to read a couple of books in this vlog, so let's just get into it and start reading. I am only 4% of the way through this book. It's gonna take me a hot second to get through and I'm only 10 minutes in, but I wanted to update you guys on what this book is about so far because I tend to just kind of jump into a book and then maybe like a couple of pages in, between like 10 and 20 pages in is kind of when I read the synopsis. So what it seems like this book is about is this girl, she's part of this poetry program specifically at a school. And I think she's doing her MFA. There's this group of girls and she calls them the bunnies, which is why the title is Bunny. But it seems like these girls, they're kind of, it seems, again, everything seemingly is that these girls are kind of like sorority girls, but I think there's only 4 of them. They invite her to one of the parties that they're hosting and that's all we know so far. I know that this book gets really weird and it's very different. I don't really know why, so I'm intrigued to learn more about what it is about this book that's so weird and what happens. That's all I have so far. Again, I'm very, very early on. I'm only on chapter 2, so we definitely have a lot to learn about this book. I feel like this book has gotten a lot of mixed ratings, which is maybe why I have put it off, because I've heard that it's really weird and the average rating is like a 3.6, which is a really good average rating. But I feel like anyone that I follow on Goodreads has either rated it 5 stars or like 2 stars, and there's kind of no in between. So I'm very, very curious to know what I'm going to think about this book. I still don't fully know what it is. It says it's like a horror, thriller, dark academia type book. So I don't know what goes on at this party, but I think basically something weird is gonna happen at this party. Let's keep reading and hopefully it's like the perfect fall mood. Like I think that it's actually great that I picked this book right now because I feel like if I were to have tried to read this in like, I don't know, the summertime, it wouldn't really make sense. So I think it's perfect vibes for this book. And I have been really wanting to read it for a couple of years now. So I actually remember choosing this as one of the very first book club books for my book club, which was a couple of years ago. So we're finally getting to it and I'm excited to tell you guys all of my thoughts. I'm not much further into the story. I am 6% of the way through the book so far, but I have been noticing that the type of writing style that this author uses is like very stream of consciousness, which I don't know, I don't not like. I guess I haven't read too many books with that type of writing style. So it's definitely very different for me and a little bit interesting to like hear them talk about things. Like it feels like I'm talking to a friend, I guess, or it feels like the same way that I would maybe like text, where you're just like continuing and then like adding metaphors to describe something to your friend kind of idea, but like not too deep or like flowery metaphors, just metaphors in general. So I do kind of like that it's stream of consciousness because it's pushing onto almost like run-on sentences, but in a good way, which sounds so weird because like how could that be in a good way? It just keeps my attention somehow. It makes me like follow what she's saying and just like let her speak and continue going on this like random tangent that she's going on, and then eventually I know what she's talking about. But it's like the whole chapter will be that way, and it's not actually run-on sentences, but it kind of feels that way. The way she, like literally the way that I just spoke about this, and I'm just giving you like whatever is coming up in my brain, that's how the book reads, which is very interesting. Very, very different from what I'm used to. I feel like I'm usually reading something that's like highly edited, and I'm not saying that this is not edited by any means. I'm sure that it is, but it's executed in a way that makes it feel like I'm just talking to somebody. So those are my only thoughts so far. I really truly don't have very many because I'm only 6% of the way through the book. It says that I should be able to read this book in roughly 8.5 hours. So hopefully that's actually the case. We'll see, because sometimes I get distracted, but ideally I should be able to finish it in the 8.5 hours. So let's keep reading. I want to learn more about our main characters, learn more about like what's going on with this party that they were invited to, and kind of figure out why everyone keeps saying that it's such a weird book. And hopefully we jump into the weirdness of this book pretty immediately. I don't know when it starts. There's already one character that seems a little strange, and I'm already like, because I know this book is gonna be weird, I'm already in the mode where I'm like looking out for the people who are like, I don't know, going to be the weird people. But I don't know if it's the people that's weird. I don't know if it's what happens. Like I have no idea what's going to happen in this book. So I don't even really know what to keep an eye out for. Good morning, you guys. I am 20% through the way of Bunny, and I am roughly on page 62, chapter 8. I'm starting to get to the point where the book is getting weird, and I get it now. Like I see why all of the reviews are like, what is happening in this book? Basically right now, our main character, she has gone to, it's called a smut salon. I don't really know why it's called that yet, but basically all of the bunnies invite her. There's 4 of them. So the bunnies invite her to the smut salon, which is like a little party that they have. She goes and they essentially like read poetry together, except it's like slightly more erotic poetry, I guess, or like talks about the body in some way. Like it's not necessarily like erotic and like, it's erotic in like an art sense, not in like a actual sense, if that makes any sense. I said sense a lot. Anyway, after that, weird things are happening, and I'm starting to feel like one of our main characters is not who we think that she is right now. Because I've seen the reviews that like this book is just weird, I kind of don't trust anything that this book is trying to tell me. I don't trust any of the characters. I don't trust anything that the characters see or feel, and I just kind of don't know what to think. This book does read very quickly, which I enjoy. I feel like some chapters are a little longer, some are a little shorter, so it's not like a consistent like, oh, this has tons of short chapters or anything like that, but it is overall a shorter book. It's just under 300 pages, so I am liking that it feels faster paced. I do still feel like sometimes those really long run-on sentences, like an entire page can be part of a paragraph. And like, I mean, my font is like decently big. You kind of get the gist. Like if that entire page had no indentations, it kind of feels like a lot. So at times I feel like this book feels really fast, and other times the run-on sentences almost kind of like make me lose my train of thought, which I don't know if that's the intention of the author, so that they do confuse you. I don't know. I feel like sometimes the run-on sentences keep me on track, and other times I'm like, wait, what were we talking about? So those are my thoughts and observations so far. Again, I have no idea like what's happening or anything. This is considered a thriller novel, and I don't know if that's actually going to be like that it's spooky, or like I don't really know what they mean by thriller for this type of book, because I also feel like there's a lot of books that are classified as thrillers that are for other reasons, not because it's like a classical thriller novel. So I'm intrigued. Let's keep reading. Hopefully I have more thoughts. It says I have about 6 hours left of the book. My plan is to finish this book this weekend. I do have some plans this weekend. Bulk of my reading will probably be on Sunday, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that maybe we can finish this. If I really put my mind to it, we could, but it just depends on how the days go, how many plans I end up having, all of that. Let's get to it this morning. I am headed out of the house in like maybe an hour-ish, so I want to get to some reading within that next hour, and then we'll head off, and I'll give you guys any updates if I have any. Good morning, you guys. I wanted to give you my updates on the book Bunny. I am 56% of the way through on chapter 20, and I have like 3.5 hours left of reading. This book is weird. I don't know how else to explain it. There are parts where they kind of allude to maybe some kind of relationship that our main character had with a teacher of some kind, or maybe an advisor, but they say that it like wasn't actually like the type of relationship that you would think of, but then they don't tell you what it was. So your mind just kind of like wanders the whole time about like what could happen anytime that person is brought up. She's also invited to go hang out with the 4 bunnies, like these girls, kind of like sorority girls, I guess you could say. Like that's how they talk and act, which is very much a stereotype. As somebody who was in a sorority, I don't love the stereotype, but just like stereotypical sorority girls. Yeah, so she's invited to hang out with them, and she has like one of the weirdest nights of her life. She basically like falls off the face of the earth for a while, and just everything that happens is so weird. And I don't want to like spoil anything, so I don't want to get into what happens, but she has an interesting relationship with one of her best friends now because of hanging out with the bunnies. The bunnies themselves are just, there's just so many different things. I see why everyone's like, this book is just weird. I try to look up like, what is it about this book? Like what's the book supposed to be commentary on? Because clearly it's commentary on something. I believe it's commentary on women in arts programs, or like in higher education arts programs, I think, or just like arts programs in general, which once I read that, I was like, okay, I kind of get it, because as somebody who is also in an arts program, the things that are expected of you or the people in your groups are very interesting, and I don't know, I guess you could just say like ritualistic in some ways. They can be, not every single person is, of course, but yeah, this book I guess kind of dives into that a little bit. So it is very interesting, but it's just weird and feels like a fever dream, but also like you're on drugs. Like there's no cohesiveness, and then like everything, it kind of feels like a dream sequence where it's like it makes sense for the book, but then when you take a step back and think about like, oh, this turned into this thing, or they were here and all of a sudden they were here, it doesn't actually make sense, but it does in the book. I don't know how to explain that. So basically I feel like I'm in somebody's dream. We have 3 hours left, 3.5 hours actually. I think it's 5:30 a.m. right now. It's very, very early because I've been waking up early ever since I did my 5 a.m. video. I've been staying consistent with it. So we're gonna read for a little bit. I think I'm gonna make some coffee in a little bit too. I am a little sleepy today. And let's see how far we get. I just wanna hopefully finish this within the next few days, like the next day or so. That would be nice. I kind of wanted to finish it over the weekend, but I ended up having more plans than expected. Let's see if we can finish this within the next few days, and then we'll move on to our next 25 and 25 book. I don't know what it's gonna be yet, but I'm excited to pick it. The little spinny wheel, that's just always so fun to me. I don't know why. I finished Bunny. I don't know what to rate this. I always rate things on both Fable and Goodreads. I use both just because I like them for different reasons, and I know that different people use different platforms. So on Fable, you have to rate something unless you did not finish it. So I gave it a 3-star because I don't know what to rate this, but on Goodreads, you don't have to rate things. And I think that this is just one of those books that has to be unrated for me. I think that it was so good. The 3 stars is not actually real. Like I don't know what to rate it, so I just gave it like the middle rating because I don't want to give it like 1 or 5. This one was weird. I looked up a bunch of theories after finishing it because I wanted to like better understand and kind of have like just like thoughts that other people had about this book. And a lot of people have talked about the main character maybe having schizophrenia, which I do not believe. I don't think that this book had anything to do with like a huge talk about mental health. I think this is more about just talking about creative writing or programs in general, higher education. Like that is more of what the story is about, but it is definitely a little out there and a little weird. It's not so hard to follow. I feel like a lot of the reviews make this sound like it's super mind-blowing and like this crazy story. Honestly, I don't want to say disappointed, but from like chapter 2, I knew something and I was like, I know something about a character basically. Like it's kind of obvious to me. And by the end of it, that was one of the twists of this book, and I already knew it from like chapter 2, and that was just like by accident. I didn't read into anything or anything. Like I think that if you're really paying attention, you already know something about one of these characters. I think it was especially interesting, I think I've already said this in this video, but it was especially interesting having been an art student. I feel like some of these things really spoke to me, like just the way that the professors act towards some of the students, the way that some of the students act, the way that there's this like imbalance between a variety of students, and especially when you have a really small class or cohort. I just like so many things reminded me of school. And I think that for that reason, I also really enjoyed the commentary about higher education and specifically arts with higher education. I also only did undergrad. I didn't even go into like an MFA program or anything like that, which this main character is in an MFA program, which can be even more intense. So I don't know, I think that like if you're in the arts or if you've been in like higher education or really elite programs, like even, I think that you could really enjoy this story. I don't think that this one's for everybody. I think that if you're open to a bit of a different type of story, something that is kind of commentary on the way that higher education and academia works, especially in the arts, I think it's very interesting. It is definitely weird. It is marketed as a bit of like a mystery thriller, and it's not a mystery thriller. I mean, like there are some points where we're talking about murder, but it's not like thriller murder. I don't know how else to describe that without giving anything away. It is more about your characters and like the things that you create within your own mind and murdering those thoughts, if that makes any sense. So I really liked this one a lot. I liked it a lot, but I think it's mostly because of my experience, specifically the experiences that I had, not just being in the arts and not just having a formal education in the arts, but the particular experience that I had in the arts. I really resonated with this book a lot. I thought that it was very, very interesting, but it's definitely not for everybody. So if you're looking for something different, if you want to have an open mind about something, this one is very, very interesting. So I think I'm gonna just leave it unrated for now. We got one more off the list. I've been so curious about this one for so long. There is a second book. It's now a duology. I don't know that I would go into the second book, honestly. I feel like I got everything I needed out of this one, and I would be curious to maybe read spoilers of what the second one is about. I think it's called I Love You Bunny, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to read the synopsis. Maybe we'll cross that bridge later, but for now, this is enough for me. So unrated, but really, really good. It was just very different, and I liked that. So let's get back to our little spinny wheel over here. I think I was actually successfully able to remove the ads because they can get annoying. So let's spin our wheel. I have 14 books left on our 25 and 25. So here's our wheel, and let's spin to see what our next book is. The Secret Messenger. Okay. The Secret Messenger is a book that I actually have physically on my bookshelf in the room, and I randomly found this actually on the floor like a couple of years ago. I was just walking in Highland Park and it was just like on the cement, and I was like, that's really weird and random, and it looked interesting. It's a historical fiction novel about, I think, World War II, and that's kind of all I know. It's like one of those like a woman in World War II. I don't really know what it's about quite yet, but we're gonna start reading this one next, and I'll give you guys all my thoughts along the way. Hello you guys, it's been a second. Apologies for my voice. I got a little sick and we're getting over it still. But I wanted to give you an update on the book that I'm reading, which is The Secret Messenger by Mandy Robotham. I am on chapter 9 and I'm about 25% of the way through this book. I didn't really have any updates for you guys because I'm still under 100 pages in. Honestly, it's been a few days and I had a vacation. I went to go visit my family in Washington, so I didn't really read when I was there. This book just didn't make me want to like pick it up, if that makes any sense. Like, it's good, but every time I think about picking it up, I opt for doing something else. So it's kind of one of those. Basically, what's happening right now is we're going between two different timelines, which is the 1940s, around like 1944 for the most part, and then 2017. In 2017, we're following a granddaughter who is discovering information about her grandmother, and in 1944, we're following that grandmother. Her name is Stella. We know that she ends up with somebody named Gio because our granddaughter character, her name's Louisa, she knows that her grandpa's name was Gio. She didn't really know her grandfather, so she's like learning a lot. Her mom passes away. Louisa's mom passes away, and so that's how Louisa is now just getting access to like all of these documents because her mom never really talked about her mom, if that makes sense. Like, her mom didn't talk about Louisa's grandmother, who is Stella. So we're learning, she's learning. Stella, she is working in a Nazi office in
Venice, she is part of a resistance. So she's kind of like a double agent, if that makes sense. She's a typist for the Nazis. She also then just like passes that information back over to the resistance, but she also has other jobs in between that sometimes for the resistance. Like she has to carry things back and forth between different parts of the islands. So she, you know, runs into times where maybe she is gonna get caught, and that's kind of terrifying. So we go through a lot of that, and that's kind of all we've gone through so far. It's really just like the setup of the story, I feel. We do know that there's a ball coming up. I don't know if it's called a ball, but that's what I'm envisioning in my head. It's like a little party, basically, for the Nazis, and she got invited, which is interesting. So she says yes because she thinks it'll be good for the resistance. That's kind of where we're at. So I want to know like what more of the story is, but I don't know, like I feel like I need something bigger from this. I don't know how else to explain that. Like I feel like in every other story that I've read that's similar to this, it's like there's a main like piece of like, okay, this is our goal. Whereas for this story, the resistance, their goal is just to pass along information to the citizens of Venice. And I think that's a good goal, don't get me wrong, but it's not like a goal that creates a good story in the sense that there's not like a thing that they're constantly leading up to throughout the entirety of the story. Does that make sense? Like it's just like a passive goal that happens multiple times throughout the storyline. So I am curious to know if something big does happen, and I'm curious enough about the story to continue it, but I don't know that this is going to be my favorite. So far it's a 3-star, which isn't bad, but it's not my favorite either. That is where we're at. I'm gonna keep reading this morning. I hopefully will finish this within the next couple of days. I have like 7 hours left of the book. I probably can finish it within the next, I don't know, maybe 2 days, 3 days, something like that. And I'll continue to update you guys as things happen, because right now that's kind of all that's happened, and so I didn't really like stop to update you guys until now. So if something crazy happens, I'll tell you. You know, I was reading this book some more this morning, and I think I kind of put my finger on what I'm not liking about this book, because everything else is interesting. I do still feel like it's a little slow in the sense of like, I don't know, the storyline and like what's going on, although something did just happen with our main character Stella. It's kind of weird. It's more just kind of like a wait, what's going on? But it's not like, oh my god, or like jaw-dropping or anything. It's just like confusion basically. So that's interesting. But when we go back to the chapters with Stella's granddaughter, Louisa becomes obsessed with learning more about her grandmother, and up until this point, which I'm now like 35% of the way through, the chapters honestly feel pointless. I hope that towards the end it all makes sense. I don't know, I just feel like it's like inserting somebody learning about their grandparent for no reason other than like it's interesting that we all have some potential history tied back to World War II and like learning who our parents or grandparents or great-grandparents were during those times. Yeah, I don't know, it's just every time I get to one of her chapters I'm like, it's the 2017 chapter, 2016 chapter, whatever it is. And I'm just like not as interested. She's also being like really irrational. She's not even talking to her husband because she's so engrossed in this box of papers that she found from her grandmother. And she's like insisting that she goes back to Venice to like just go for a few days for no real reason. And I don't know, I just feel like most people would not be so irrational about like this. It feels like not even real life at this point because she's just being irrational about everything. Again, maybe that will tie toward the end up with like something else that happens with the grandma or who knows, but I really like the Stella chapters. I don't like the Louisa chapters, but those are, it's not like a 1-for-1. It's like you'll get 5 Stella chapters and then like 1 Louisa chapter, and then like the Stella chapters are maybe like 20 minutes long to read, and then the Louisa ones are 5 minutes. So it doesn't come up as frequently as it may seem by the way that I'm talking about it, but when it does come up I'm like, this is kind of annoying. So anyway, back to it. I'm gonna keep reading and try to get through as much as possible today. Morning, you guys. I'm still reading The Secret Messenger. I am 42% of the way through. This book is getting kind of slow, or it has been slow. Like everything that's happened so far, 42% of the way through, could have happened like 20% of the way through any other book. I just feel like every time I'm like, okay, if I, you know, after right now, if I'm not into the book still, I'm gonna switch books, and then something happens, but then it somehow gets resolved really quickly, or it gets tame again, or we have to wait for an answer. And so I don't know, maybe that's just because it's emulating formulating like what it felt like to be in our main character's position where she's constantly waiting for things. But it's like, I just wish the plot would go a little faster, just a little, because the story itself is intriguing. It's just a little slow. I'm gonna try to read for a little bit longer, and if I'm not super into it, then like let's get to 50% basically. If I'm not into it by 50%, I think I'm going to just move forward and change books. For some reason it's really hard, especially when I've given a book this much of an opportunity, like 50%. It's hard for me to DNF a book because I now care about our characters, or like I know them, and I don't want to just like leave them hanging even though they're just characters, but I also don't want to waste my time. I still don't like the 2017 chapters. Like they feel pointless to me. So anyway, let's find out. Let's see. We're at page 157 in this, so we'll see what happens next. Hello you guys, I have crazy news. This morning, I think I was on chapter 26 of Secret Messenger, and I had to go into the office today, and I decided to listen to part of this book as an audiobook. That was mostly when I was like driving into the office. I was able to listen to the audiobook no problem today, and I ended up finishing this book. Sorry, P is right here, and he's playing with a toy, so hopefully he doesn't squeak it a bunch, but I wanted to give you guys this update. I ended up rating this 3 stars, which I just want to give the disclaimer. I think some people rate things 3 stars because they think it's a bad book. 3 stars for me is like down the middle. I thought it was a good book. I would recommend it, but it's not like my favorite book in the whole world. 5 stars is like, I can't stop thinking about it. It's changed my life. And 4 stars is like, I loved that book so much. So 3 stars is what I gave it. I really, really, really liked our main character, Stella. Her story and her chapters were fantastic. I didn't really love Luisa's chapters, and I'll tell you why. I feel like they were there to discover something that, I don't know, I don't feel like it needed discovering. And so for me, because I didn't feel like I was tied to that discovery, I didn't feel like any of her chapters were necessary. Like, I truly didn't feel tied to that character. I felt like she became obsessive over her grandmother. The one little thing or tidbit that you discover through Luisa's chapters is why Luisa and her mother, Stella, who is our main character, had a bad relationship. And the piece of it was so small, and literally like you find it out in like half of a sentence at one point randomly, and I just didn't feel like it was that heavy. I mean, it was and it wasn't. Like the topic itself was, but I felt like the author didn't spend a lot of time on it, and again just like really like blew past that detail, even though the whole reason that she is on the hunt to find information about her grandmother is because her mom passes away and she's never understood the dynamic between her mother and her grandmother, and so now she's like on a mission to find out more information. So I don't know, for them to just like blow past it and to not make it a big deal, even though that was the whole point for her, I felt like there was like a little bit of a miss there, for me at least. Circling back to Stella's chapters, the ending, first of all, was fantastic. The whole time you know who Stella ends up marrying, but because this is World War II and there's resistance members, there's people who have secret identities and things like that, you don't actually know who is who. You kind of are toying between different characters, like could that maybe be her husband? Could that maybe be her husband? You also don't know who really to trust throughout the whole book, which was fantastic and kind of fun. It definitely made you understand at least a tiny, 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 tiny bit what it must have felt like to like not be able to trust anybody during this time. That being said, I think that the only thing about this book, and like maybe part of the reason why I decided to give it 3 stars, I think I said this earlier on too, but I felt like there wasn't like a purpose, and that sounds kind of weird because the whole story or the whole premise is that Stella is a resistance member. She's living in Venice and she's helping the Venetians and like the Italians to get information from the Germans, and she's working in a German office translating things, taking that information and bringing it back over to the resistance members. But the whole book is like that same thing on repeat. There's not like one big thing that do you know what I'm saying? Like there's not something that's building and building and building. Like I don't even know what it could be. Like maybe she found out early on in the book that on a certain date something was going to happen, and so we were like building up until that date. Nothing like that was happening. So I really feel like we could have gone a little bit deeper with it by having something that she was like leading up toward. But you know, I think honestly like that was the reality of war, is that you were kind of just like doing the same thing, trying your hardest to not get caught, and that was kind of it. I don't know. It was very real about, well, from what I can imagine, the war was like, but I do wish that there was like a little bit more. But with that being said, that's one more off of the list. So let's go back over to our spinner. We're gonna spin. We have 13 books left. So let's see which book we're gonna get next, because I have been really, really excited to read something else. Again, not that I like don't like this book. I think I mentioned at some point that I was going to maybe DNF it. I'm glad that I didn't, and then I did see this book through because it was really good, but I think I'm ready for something different, and I kind of hope that I get something like, I don't know, maybe something spooky. That would be kind of fun. So let's find out. Oh my gosh, I was just talking to somebody about that whole series. Okay, Caraval. I feel torn about this because it's another series, which if you guys watched my last video of knocking off 25 and 25, I read 6 of Crows and I haven't gotten to the second one in that. And I was like a little nervous because I don't want to forget everything. I'm a little nervous about Caraval, but I am excited to get into the series. That's the next book. I'm also excited because that's kind of perfect for this like time period where it's like a little bit cold, a little bit darker, because I think that it's a fantasy novel. I'm gonna go get that on my Kindle and we will begin reading tonight, and we'll see how we like Caraval. I don't even know how long it is or really what it's about, so I'll update you guys once I know. Hello you guys, I wanted to give you a little update on reading Caraval. I am about 25% of the way through. I'm on chapter 11, which is in the second part. This book is broken up into parts, but it's not like part 1, part 2. They're just like called different things. So the second part is called The Night of Caraval Eve. So we're almost to night 1 of Caraval. I didn't really know what this book was about when I first started talking to you guys about it, or like when I first selected it on my little spinner. So now that I have more of an understanding of what it's all about, I can give you guys some more of like what's going on in this book, what I've learned so far about our characters, that kind of thing. Basically, we're following a couple of characters, Scarlett, Tella, or Donatella, and Julian. Scarlett and Tella, they are daughters of a general, not a general. I forget what he calls himself, but their dad is some kind of powerful man on one of the isles, and the 2 daughters obviously are his daughters. His wife left him at some point, or at least it was speculated that she left, and Julian is a sailor. He shows up because he's like hanging out with Donatella, or Tella is what they call her, and basically Scarlett happens upon them, and she's been writing to the person who hosts Caraval. His name is Legend, and she's like, oh my gosh, we have these tickets now, blah blah blah. So basically she gets invited to Caraval, she gets to bring her sister, and she's also engaged. She's never met her fiance, but he's a count, and she's also allowed to bring her fiance. But the problem is that they realize Caraval is in like 2 days or 3 days, something like that, and she's supposed to be married in like a week. So like timeline wise, it just like doesn't make sense. And on top of it, her dad is extremely abusive, and so there's no chance that her dad would ever let them off of the island. That's the situation. Caraval itself seems to be some kind of magical game, something that's playing on maybe like the reality that they're living. I don't 100% know. It seems like there's a lot of magic within Caraval, but in the rest of the world there's not. So some people are like, oh, magic doesn't actually exist, until they go and they see Caraval or participate in Caraval. You have the option when you get there to either participate or play. And I won't tell you how it all goes down, obviously, in case you want to read it, but she ultimately gets to Caraval and she is about to play. So again, we're at the night of Caraval Eve. So it's the night before. So Caraval starts or runs each night, and then on like sun up is when, in theory, it's like, it's almost like everything is backwards. So sun up is about to happen, but something crazy actually just happened, and we'll see what happens on chapter 11 and beyond. But I do have a couple of thoughts. The dynamic of Julian, first of all, is kind of interesting because he is a very flirtatious character. Again, we first meet him when he is literally basically stripping down Donatella, which is Scarlett's sister. And then like now throughout the rest of the chapters, like from that point onward, you're basically experiencing Julian heavily flirt with Scarlett. And so it's kind of weird that he was like kind of talking to one sister and like, I don't know, flirting with another one. Scarlett does kind of call him out and is like, you know, like, 1, I'm engaged, so like don't flirt with me, but also 2, to like, you were talking to my sister, and he kind of just like shoves it off and he's like, oh, like we weren't really talking. So I don't really know what the situation is there. I think that we're just supposed to like pretend like that part never happened, but I wish that they would have introduced him a different way, because I can't forget that. And so it's kind of like not making me like him, because obviously he's just like a player. Something else about Julian that I don't like is that our main character, her name is Scarlett, he keeps calling her Crimson, and this feels like one of those 2015 type joke. Yeah, that's basically what's happening. I don't love the joke, but it is what it is. Other than that, the chapters are short enough. I think there's some longer ones, some shorter ones, so I do like the pacing of the book so far. Everything reads extremely easily because it is a YA fantasy, so it's not too complicated. There's not too much world building, like not too many hoops to jump through in order to understand what's going on in the book, so I really like that part, and I'm intrigued. I mean, I'm already 25% of the way through. I literally started it, I think, yesterday. We're already like a good chunk of the way through this book. I'm gonna continue reading and hopefully have some more thoughts. Really like it so far, and I think I'm gonna kind of fly through this one. It's a trilogy, and then there's also duology that follows the trilogy. We'll see how much we get into, but I want to finish this one first before I decide whether or not I'm going to continue the series. All right, we are almost 50% of the way through this book now. I want to try to read as much as I possibly can today. I had told myself I was going to try to finish this book today, but we have 5 hours left. I don't know if we're gonna be able to do it, but again, we're gonna read as much as we can. I did make a couple of notes, and I wanted to tell you guys about the notes before I continue reading, because my goal is to read as much as I can today, and I'll obviously pause to tell you guys if anything crazy is happening, but I don't want to forget to tell you guys this stuff before I continue. So the first two things are really, really small. Overall, I do want to say I'm really liking this book. I like the story so far. I could see myself getting into this series, but I think there's like a couple of things that are kind of taking me out of it. So for example, there's a part where they go into this inn and they have to get into the inn, like inside of the door by a certain time, and they barely don't make it. So there's two people, one of them makes it in, the other person doesn't. The person who makes it in, she's kind of like freaking out, and she's like, no, like you have to let him in, blah, blah, blah. The woman is like, well, why would I do that? And she tells the woman, well, because we're engaged, which they're not actually engaged. The woman's just like, well, I hate to split up couples, but like I can't do anything. And then the girl says, well, you don't understand who I am. I'm Scarlett Drogna, or however you say her name. Like, I'm a special guest. And then they're like, oh my gosh, you're right. You're so right. Let's let him in, whatever. And then later, the guy is like, how did they let me in? And she's like, oh, well, I told them that we were getting married. But I'm like kind of frustrated by that, because it's like, no, that's not how they let you in. You said that you were who you were and you're a special guest. And that's what, because she even said, well, I don't want to split up couples, but there's nothing that I can do. So that kind of frustrated me. Whenever there's like weird discrepancies, even later, the innkeeper woman mentions, oh, well, I didn't want to keep you guys separated. But again, that's like not the reason why. So I don't know, just these really small inconsistencies, they make me so angry. Like, this is the kind of thing that I feel like, unless it has meaning later on in the story, which like 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. It ends up being a mistake, and it feels like a mistake that should have been caught. The next one, basically in this part of the story, our main character, she loses the guy that she's traveling with, and then they meet back up, and she keeps asking him, like, he has a bunch of injuries. She keeps asking him, like, how did you get all these injuries? And then he will kind of like spin the conversation and talk about something related to her. And then by the time he leaves, she's like, wait, I still don't know how he got his injuries. And I think that maybe somehow he's involved in all of this. Like, that's the only thing that, like, he seems to have a lot of knowledge, and he seems to be able to kind of like sway her or like guide her in different ways throughout all of Caraval, basically. The only reason I feel like he would know all of these things, even if he's done one of these before, is if maybe he's in on something. I'm kind of getting like a little sus about him. I don't know if we should trust him or not. I feel like this is going to be one of those things that the author makes us trust him until all of a sudden he does something, and then we're like really mad. But I'm already getting sus, so we'll see. Like I said, I want to try to read as much as I possibly can, so I want to just go outside, sit with P for a little bit and read, and if anything else happens that's insane, I will definitely tell you guys. But I am really liking it. I think right now I would probably rate it like a 3 or a 4. I don't think that it is something that I'm losing sleep over, but that being said, it is a really, really easy read, and so because of that, I'm more likely to pick it up. I'm more interested in this book than I was my last book, The Secret Messenger, so go maybe a little higher than a 3, but it just all depends on how the rest of the story plays out. Can't quite tell you ratings of like what I'm thinking, but I'll keep you posted and let's see how the rest of the story goes. A couple of updates that I just wanted to mention, and this is kind of tagging on with my earlier thought of like, I think that the author is going to make us feel a certain way about a character and then kind of show who he really is, and I don't know, maybe kind of like do a little bit of this like back and forth. There's a part where our main character Scarlett, she's missing something. She like sees it, somebody basically like steals it, and it has no real monetary value, but to her it has sentimental value, and Julian gets it back for her and like surprises her with it essentially, which feels very unlike him for like literally the rest of the book. Like the rest of the book or prior to that situation, he's always been very selfish. And then just now I'm reading something where I won't give any details, but essentially she's in a situation he is willing to like give up half of his share, is what I'm gonna call it. Again, feels very unlike him. So I'm curious to see how they develop this relationship or what they do like to us emotionally too, because we're starting to like him, but I'm like, I still feel like something's up and I feel like he's involved somehow. We'll find out. But those are the updates on our main characters.
Hello you guys, I wanted to update you because I finally finished Caraval. I think I'm going to give this one a 4-star. I have a couple of thoughts about it and I kind of wanted to go through. I actually highlighted quite a few things in the ebook. I just wanted to run through them to talk to you guys a little bit more about my thoughts. Okay, the first thing that I was kind of thinking about is how I had said at the beginning that I had a feeling that they were going to make us kind of suspicious about one character and then kind of like have that character prove himself in a way. That is in some way, shape, or form what happened, but they kind of like kept doing that, like making us second guess this character and then like think that we could trust him and then maybe we couldn't and then maybe we could. So the push and pull was definitely there, but I don't know, like in some ways it almost happened too much because then it got to a point where it's like, okay, do we trust him or do we not? So that was like kind of, I don't know, I liked it, but I didn't at the exact same time. I think if they did it one less time, then I would have really enjoyed that piece. Something else that I'm not 100% sure that I loved about this book is every time they were like hiding or kind of like in a dangerous situation and they had to like be maybe in like close quarters, that's right when our main character would kind of realize that she has feelings for this other male main character. And I'm like, I don't think that if I was in like a life or death situation with a man and like we were up against each other and I thought he was attractive, I don't think that that's when I would be like, oh my gosh, his hands are really close to me. Like I would be thinking about whether or not I'm about to die, not about the man next to me. You know what I mean? And I think what I wish that these pieces did, or like these parts in this story, is if in the moment she was just thinking about the life or death situation and then when things calmed down, maybe his hands were like still on her and she was like, oh my gosh, he's like lingering. That I think I could be okay with. But there's a lot of things like this in this book, and I think this is the whole reason why I'm not rating it a 5-star, that kind of felt convenient in the way that they were explained. Similar to the explanation of this male main character having been close with our female main character's sister, and then now she really likes him. Felt a little strange to me at least, but at some point the sister is basically just like, by the way, we never even kissed and like we actually weren't into each other, and like has a whole explanation for this. It just sort of felt convenient to me and felt like things were sort of being explained away. So I have quite a few other examples of that, but I don't want to give any spoilers at all. So just so I can be certain that I'm not going to give you guys any spoilers, I'm going to stop my annotations there, or like giving you guys thoughts on my annotations. But overall, I had a really fun time. This book really made me want to come back to it, and like every time I wasn't reading, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be reading. So overall, I think that I really liked this book a lot. I am excited because since it is a series, I do want to continue the series. It did also end on a cliffhanger, which I love. So I'm excited because I want to go through and I want to read some more. I want to know what happens next in our storyline and what happens with our main characters, because again, cliffhanger, I gotta know what happens. I feel like this set of books that I read, Bunny, Secret Messenger, and Caraval, are all books that I was like pretty nervous about, or like had heard things about, or maybe just like wasn't 100% sure about. So I'm glad that I read all all of these finally and I know what they're about. I think that I had my curiosity quenched, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word that I'm looking for, but I feel like everything that I wanted to know about each of these books, because they've all been on my shelf for so long, I'm glad that I finally have had a chance to get into the books and learn more about them. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this reading vlog. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm hoping to continue this 25 and 25 series as we get closer and closer to the end of the year, because I really want to try to read all 25 books on my 25 and 25. So crossing my fingers we can get to them all. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. It really helps my channel out. That is all I have for you guys today. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.